Hello everyone, I am very glad that you're joining this story. Subscribe, like and comment. Enjoy the story, smile more often.
The bridal shower was at this overpriced tea room downtown, the kind of place that has floral wallpaper that gives you a headache if you look at it too long. And those weird little sandwiches with the crusts cut off like that somehow made them fancy instead of depressing. My best friend Trish had done the heavy lifting planning it, bless her sarcastic heart, but the guest list was a battlefield from the moment Jake's mother got her talons on it. She insisted on inviting her bridge club, her country club friends, and even a woman she once met in line at the DMV because she'd been divorced 3 times and would bring good luck. I should have known then that the day wasn't mine. It was hers. All of it had become hers. I was standing near the front table with a mimosa that had gone flat 20 minutes ago and a smile that was held up purely by muscle memory. I kept glancing around, trying to feel grateful. It was supposed to be a beautiful day. I was surrounded by my friends, family, and women I'd never met who smelled like White Diamond's perfume and judged me with their eyes. But under all the lace and pastel decorations, something felt off, and I couldn't shake it. That's when Linda stood up, clinking her spoon against her glass like she was about to make a toast that would be engraved in gold for generations. My stomach dropped before she even opened her mouth. She cleared her throat, adjusted her pearl necklace, and smiled the smile of a woman who's spent her whole life running the show. "Ladies," she began, looking around the room like a queen addressing her court, "let's all raise our glasses to Alyssa." Everyone lifted their drinks. Mine stayed frozen halfway to my mouth. "Enjoy the spotlight today, sweetheart," she said, pausing dramatically, "because it's the last time you'll matter." I swear to God, the room went silent. It wasn't even one of those, maybe you misheard it, moments. She said it clearly, with a smug little grin, like she was handing me a compliment wrapped in barbed wire. People chuckled nervously, a few women blinked in disbelief, and Jake, my fiancé, the man who claimed to love me, actually let out a low laugh like she'd made some sort of harmless joke. He didn't say a damn word to defend me. I stood there, mimosa in hand, wondering if I was losing my mind or if everyone had just decided to pretend that verbal slap hadn't happened. My hands were trembling, but I smiled. I smiled like I'd been taught to. Like a good Southern girl raised on manners and shame. "Thanks, Linda," I said, and picked up the cake knife with a grace I didn't feel. "Let's get the cake before someone makes a toast about my cooking." People laughed. I died a little inside. Later, after the last round of, "Oh, look at the lingerie," and enough fake hugs to dislocate my shoulder, I sat alone in the bathroom with my phone in my lap and mascara smudged under my eyes. I wasn't crying. Not yet. I just felt like someone had swapped my heart with a bag of bricks. I scrolled through pictures we'd taken earlier, me posing with my friends, fake smiling with Linda, standing beside Jake. I stared at our photo together and saw something I hadn't noticed before. I was leaning into him. He wasn't leaning back. That toast wasn't an accident. It wasn't a joke. It was a warning shot. Linda had been showing her cards for months, and I just hadn't wanted to see them. Like when she picked my wedding dress appointment time without asking me, "Oh, honey, 11 a.m. is better. No one looks good under afternoon lighting." Like when she changed the reception menu because Jake's allergic to shellfish, even though Jake isn't even mildly allergic, just not a fan. Like when she referred to my family as salt of the earth types, and then offered to upgrade the rehearsal dinner venue, as if we were embarrassing. And Jake? He just stood by, always playing the neutral card. She doesn't mean it. That's just how she talks. Don't take it personally. But that day, watching him laugh that tiny, dismissive chuckle, something snapped in me. Not all at once. More like a seam quietly giving way. The kind of rip you don't notice until the whole dress starts to unravel. Back at home that night, I was packing up leftover decorations when he walked in and said, "Hey, don't make things weird." She was just being her. I turned to him, holding a sparkly, bride-to-be banner in one hand and the reality of our future in the other. "Right," I said, folding it slowly. She was just being her. I smiled. But it was different now. It didn't reach my eyes. I saw him clearly for the first time, not the charming guy who made me laugh on our first date, but the man who would always make excuses for the people who hurt me. He kissed the top of my head and walked off to take a shower, humming like nothing had happened. I stood there in the hallway, heart racing, mind screaming, and I swear something ancient inside me whispered, "Do not let this be your life." I didn't sleep much that night. I laid there beside him, staring at the ceiling, counting the number of times he rolled over without reaching for me. 14, if you're wondering. 14 times he turned his back, and not once did he ask if I was okay. By morning, I had a plan. I didn't know every detail yet, but I knew one thing for sure. If they wanted a show, I was going to give them one. Just not the one they expected. The week after the bridal shower felt like walking barefoot across glass, not the sharp, obvious kind you can scream about, but the tiny slivers that get stuck deep and fester, the kind that hurt worse because no one else can see them. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that I was just tired from the wedding planning, or maybe hormonal, or maybe just being too sensitive. That's what Jake would say when I brought things up, so I tried to believe it. I really did. But deep down, I knew better. I'd known better since the moment his mother smiled while insulting me in front of 50 people, and he laughed like it was some harmless joke instead of a punch in the gut. It started small, like it always does. At brunch with Jake and Linda that Sunday, she turned to me and said, "So, Alyssa Langford, have you picked your new monogram yet?" I blinked. "Langford?" I asked, trying to smile. "It's Langston." She waved her hand like it didn't matter. "Oh, right. Langston. Close enough." Jake didn't even look up from his phone. Not a word. Not even a glance in my direction. I felt like I'd been erased in real time, like I was watching myself disappear through the cracks. The wedding was still 3 weeks away. 21 days. That's almost a month, which sounds like a lot of time until you're the one counting backwards from disaster. I was knee-deep in RSVPs, vendor checklists, and trying to pretend everything was okay when Trish finally sat me down at the wine bar near our apartment and said, "You look like you're 3 cocktails past giving a damn, and you haven't even had one." I laughed, but it was hollow, and I knew she saw through it. She always did. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, staring into my glass like it held the answer. "You've got that face you make when someone says, 'Girl boss,' unironically," she said. I snorted. Then Dean called. He'd been texting me all week, increasingly bold in his questions. "Still going through with it? Blink twice if you need rescuing. I'll rent a llama to crash the wedding if it gets you out of this." When I finally answered, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You know Jake's the kind of guy who'd watch you drown and then ask why you didn't swim harder," he said without preamble. "He's not evil. He's just lazy in ways that hurt women. And that's almost worse." I told him to knock it off. That he didn't know Jake like I did. That things were just tense because of the planning. He sighed so loud I could feel it through the phone. "You're not stupid, Liz," he said. "But you're scared. And that's dangerous." I tried to tell myself they were overreacting, that not every future husband needed to be a knight in shining armor. But the truth was, Jake wasn't even bothering to show up with a dull butter knife. That night, I was home alone, sorting through wedding gifts in our living room while Jake was out meeting a buddy for drinks, or so he said. The apartment was quiet except for the rustle of wrapping paper and the occasional clink of glass. I was halfway through unpacking a new set of wine glasses when his phone rang on the kitchen counter. I didn't mean to snoop, but I saw his mom's name light up the screen and figured I'd answer and let her know he wasn't home. Instead, I heard them both, already mid-conversation, and something in me froze. "She'll settle," Linda said, clear as day through the speaker. They always do. Especially girls like her. There was a pause, and then Jake's voice came through, relaxed and casual. "She's not the type to blow it up. She doesn't want the drama. She'll get over it." I stood there, holding a wine glass in each hand, too stunned to breathe. They weren't even whispering. They weren't worried I might hear. They were so confident I'd just take it, that I'd swallow the disrespect, nod my head, smile for the photos, and march myself straight down an aisle to a life where I didn't get a say. I didn't cry. Not right then. I just stood there, heart pounding, a strange calm washing over me like the moment before a storm hits and the air goes still. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stood behind the curtain with my clothes still on, just needing the sound of water to drown out everything else. I gripped the curtain rod like it was the only thing holding me upright, and that's when I realized it. They had no idea who I was. They'd mistaken my politeness for weakness, my patience for passivity. But I wasn't broken. I was waiting. I stepped out of the bathroom, dripping and shaking but clear-headed for the first time in weeks. I dried off, changed into a hoodie, and sat on the couch with Jake's phone still on the counter. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I knew everything I needed to know. And then I picked up my own phone, opened a text thread that had been quiet for too long, and typed 5 words: change of plans. I need help. I hit send. Who I sent it to? Well, that's where things really get fun. There's a certain kind of silence people mistake for peace, a kind of quiet that settles in when the hurricane has already passed, but the damage hasn't been accounted for yet. That's how it felt walking into the final stretch before the wedding, 2 days from the rehearsal dinner, and somehow no one had noticed the bride had stopped pretending. Trish noticed first, of course she did, because she knew me better than I knew myself most days. She looked at me across the table at brunch, picked up her fork with theatrical slowness, and said, "You're either planning to elope or murder someone. I just want to know if I need to bring bail money or a bikini." I smiled at her, the kind of smile you give a best friend when they're way too close to the truth, and said, "Neither. Just figuring some things out." But I could see her gears turning. She looked down at her planner, full of dates and details she'd been managing on my behalf, and then looked back up at me. "You haven't confirmed the florist," she said slowly. "Or the DJ. Or the baker. Or the shuttle for your aunt and cousins." "Alyssa, what are you doing?" I took a sip of my mimosa and shrugged. "I'm letting go a little. Isn't that what everyone tells the bride to do? Stop stressing. Trust the process." She blinked once, twice, and then muttered, "That's not what this is, and you damn well know it." But she didn't press further. Not yet. Back at the bridal suite, which was actually the spare bedroom of our apartment converted into a temporary war zone of lace, satin, and RSVP envelopes, there was one very important thing missing: the dress. My mother had asked about it 3 times. Linda had asked about it 6. Trish had asked once, then narrowed her eyes when I said it was at the seamstress for last-minute adjustments. In reality, the dress had never even left the boutique. I canceled the order 2 weeks ago under Linda's name and got the refund transferred to a prepaid card. I wasn't going to walk down an aisle in a gown chosen by someone who thought I'd vanish after the honeymoon. The night before the rehearsal dinner, I faked a migraine and told Jake I needed some quiet time. He didn't argue, didn't offer to stay, didn't even ask if I needed anything, just kissed my forehead and said, "You'll feel better after Saturday." I smiled and nodded, already halfway out the door in my mind. He thought I was home with the lights dimmed and a cold compress on my head. What I was actually doing was parked outside the post office with a small stack of envelopes in the passenger seat. Each one was addressed in elegant script. Each one sealed with care. The invitations inside were identical, announcing a wedding between Mr. Jake Langston and Ms. Marissa Holloway to take place the following Saturday at a venue that had long since been canceled. "Black tie optional," they read. "Reception to follow." My favorite part? Each invitation included a little note that said, "By invitation only. Non-transferable." I wanted Linda to know she wasn't in control of the show anymore. She wasn't even on the guest list. The next morning, I sat in my car outside a bakery with a coffee in hand, watching the sunlight spill over the street like honey. Trish pulled up beside me, slid into the passenger seat with a pastry box in her lap, and said, "You mailed them, didn't you?" I looked at her over the rim of my cup and raised one eyebrow. Define mailed. She opened the box, took a bite of a cinnamon roll, and said, "I hope whatever you did was nuclear." Because Linda just called me 6 times in the last 20 minutes and left a voicemail asking if you were mentally stable. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. "She got her invite?" I asked. "Oh, she got it. Trish said, grinning. And Jake called my phone by accident looking for you. He sounded like someone set his hair on fire. Which, honestly, would be an improvement. I watched a couple walk into the bakery, holding hands, the woman wearing a sweatshirt that said, wifey, in gold cursive. The irony was so thick it practically sat down beside us. I leaned back in my seat, feeling something like power curling under my skin. It's just getting started, I said, and meant it with every cell in my body. Because this wasn't about destroying anything. It was about rebuilding myself without their fingerprints all over the foundation. If they wanted to treat me like a placeholder, I was going to remind them how irreplaceable I actually was, and I wasn't going to do it quietly. Linda tried calling me 5 times that day. I didn't pick up. Jake texted, "What the hell is going on?" I didn't respond. The rehearsal dinner came and went without a rehearsal, without a bride, and definitely without the kind of clarity Jake and his mother were so used to manipulating out of people like me. But they had no playbook for silence, for withdrawal, for refusal. That night, Jake came to the apartment, our apartment, and tried his key. It didn't work. I'd changed the locks 2 hours earlier. There was a note taped to the door in thick black marker. It said, "I matter now." He stood there for a long time, staring at the paper like it held some code he couldn't crack, some secret message hidden in plain sight. But there was nothing hidden. No metaphor. No mystery. Just a truth he'd never bothered to see until it was already walking away. You'd be amazed how easy it is to disappear in plain sight, how you can keep showing up in your own life like a ghost no one sees clearly, how you can play your part so convincingly that even you forget it's a performance. That was me for months. Smiling in engagement photos I didn't want to take, nodding through tastings I didn't schedule, pretending I cared about flower arrangements that weren't mine to choose. But underneath all that nodding and smiling was a slow simmer, something sharp and molten that was just waiting for permission to boil over. And the moment Jake and Linda handed it to me, wrapped in their lazy cruelty and unspoken entitlement, I stopped pretending I wanted to be part of their world. Instead, I decided to rewrite the ending of their story, and this time, I'd be the one holding the pen. The thing about wedding planning is that everyone assumes the bride is overwhelmed and scatterbrained, so when you start forgetting things or missing deadlines or letting a few things slip through the cracks, no one questions it. They just chalk it up to bridal brain and pour you another glass of wine. So when I quietly never submitted the marriage license, just let it sit and signed, on the edge of my desk until I threw it in the shredder, no one noticed. When I never finalized the catering, never paid the deposit for the DJ, never confirmed the date with the bakery, people just assumed someone else was taking care of it. And when I called the venue a week before the wedding and canceled everything under Linda's name, the staff barely blinked. I even threw in a complaint about the lighting being unflattering and the staff being unprofessional, which I knew would make them expedite the process. Because if there's one thing Linda Langston can't stand, it's bad service. Meanwhile, I let the countdown tick away like everything was perfectly in place. People posted their travel plans and outfit selfies, hashtags were floated, excitement was brewing, and I sat in the eye of the storm, calm and still, packing a single black dress and booking a quiet hotel room downtown under Linda's name. A little payback for all the times she inserted herself where she didn't belong. The room service bill alone would give her something to talk about over brunch for the next 5 years. Dean, my cousin with a flair for chaos and a degree in graphic design, was the one who helped me with the invitations. I showed up at his apartment 2 weeks before the wedding, dropped a bottle of whiskey on his counter, and said, "I need you to help me light a match I can't unstrike." He didn't ask for details. He just poured us both a drink and opened up his laptop. The invite he created was beautiful, simple, elegant, and entirely fictional. The bride's name? Marissa Holloway. I pulled it from a book I read in high school, a character who faked her own death and moved to the mountains. It felt poetic. We printed 50 copies. Sent 20. Just enough to cause confusion, just enough to make people whisper. And then, the final touch, the flowers. I redirected them. Every last arrangement, every bouquet and centerpiece Linda had so meticulously ordered in her signature blush and gold palette, rerouted to a small cemetery on the edge of town. There's something quietly devastating about seeing a spray of pale roses next to a gravestone. Here lies your control. That was the message. And then I vanished. On the morning of what should have been my wedding, I posted one photo on Instagram, me, standing on the balcony of the hotel room in a black slip dress, hair down, glass of champagne in hand, captioned with a single word, free. No location tag. No explanation. Just that. By 10 a.m., my phone had 23 missed calls, mostly from Jake, 3 from Linda, and 1 from my mother, who simply texted, "Whatever this is, I hope it's worth it." And I didn't respond. Not because I didn't love her, but because I was finally doing something that wasn't about keeping everyone else comfortable. Jake's work buddies, the ones who used to high-five him over beers and call me Mrs. Langston to be, started asking questions. Rumors spread fast in offices like his, full of white walls and egos and performance bonuses. Someone even posted a screenshot of my Instagram photo in the group chat and said, "Guess the wedding was a solo event." The whispers grew. That he'd been left at the altar. That his bride had run off with someone else. That he got caught cheating. None of it was true, and yet none of it mattered. The truth didn't have to do the heavy lifting anymore. The narrative was already loose in the wild. Linda tried to clean it up, of course. She called vendors. Threatened to sue the venue. Told people there'd been a clerical error, a family emergency, a private elopement. But no one bought it. You can't control a story once you've lost the room. And Linda? She'd lost it the moment she opened that fake invitation with a different bride's name and realized someone else had taken the wheel. Jake called me one last time 3 days later. I answered, just to hear what version of himself he'd try to play this time. His voice was low, angry, shaking with a kind of embarrassment that's louder than rage. "You embarrassed me," he said. No hello. No apology. Just that. And I paused, let the silence sit for a beat, then said, "You made me invisible. Now everyone sees you for what you are." I hung up before he could respond. The best part? There was nothing left for him to fix. Nothing for him to explain away or spin or control. The story had unfolded without him, and for once, he wasn't the protagonist. He was just the man standing at the wrong altar, holding nothing, realizing too late that the woman who was supposed to complete his picture had already painted herself a whole new canvas. And I wasn't done yet. There's a quiet that comes after the storm, not the kind that feels like peace, but the kind that feels like you're standing in the wreckage of something that once had walls and a roof and now just smells like ash and dust. And you're the only one left to decide whether to rebuild or walk away. I moved 2 months after everything blew up, not because I had to, but because I needed a place where people didn't look at me like they knew a version of the story I hadn't told them. I found a job teaching at a school tucked into the edge of a small town just far enough from my old life that no one recognized my name, and for the first time in years, I breathed without calculating how it would sound to someone else. My apartment is smaller now, older too, with creaky floorboards and mismatched windows, but it's mine, all mine. No shared closet with someone who doesn't see you, no framed engagement photos on the nightstand that make your stomach twist when you catch them in the dark. I painted the walls a soft green and put plants on every windowsill, mostly because they make the space feel alive. The first week, I slept like a log. The second, I woke up in a cold sweat every night at 3 a.m., unsure if I'd made a horrible mistake or narrowly avoided one. The third week, I laughed. Real, gut-deep laughter, the kind that starts in your chest and spills out loud and unapologetic. That's when I knew I was going to be okay. Not today or tomorrow, but eventually. The students call me Miss G, and they don't care about my past, only that I let them use colored pens and sometimes play music during quiet work time. A few of them ask why I don't wear a ring, why I don't talk about a husband, and I just smile and say, not everyone's story goes the same way. I've gone on a few dates since moving here, nothing serious, mostly coffee that turns into polite conversation and ends with a hug that neither of us really means. One man was kind and curious, another a little too much like Jake in the ways that matter, but it didn't hurt. I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I was just living. Then, last week, a letter arrived in the mail, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Linda's. That tight, looping cursive that always looked like it belonged on monogrammed stationery and petty complaints. I stared at the envelope for a long time. My thumb hovered over the seal. For a moment, I almost opened it. And then, just as fast, I dropped it into the trash next to a bag of coffee grounds and banana peels. Whatever she had to say, I didn't need to hear it. Some nights, I lie in bed and ask myself the questions I know other people are asking behind closed doors. Did I overreact? Could I have fought harder? Was I impulsive, dramatic, selfish? Maybe. Maybe I was all of those things. But then I remember standing in that tea room at my own bridal shower while someone I was supposed to call Mom told a room full of strangers that I would never matter again. I remember Jake chuckling beside her, not with malice, but with indifference, which is sometimes worse. I remember my own face in the mirror that night, hollow and tired and numb, and how I smiled anyway because that's what good girls do. That's what polite women do. We smile and nod and thank them for insults disguised as concern until one day, something inside us decides to stop playing dead. And that's what I did. I stopped playing dead. Maybe I didn't have the perfect wedding with a walk down the aisle and a string quartet playing something soft and emotional while my father gave me away. Maybe I didn't get the Instagram-worthy photos or the cake cutting or the bouquet toss. But I got something better. I got my own damn voice back. I got the satisfaction of watching people scramble to fix a narrative they never expected to unravel. I got freedom, raw and painful and beautiful. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's story, so be it. They never saw the point of me. So I made myself the exclamation. Today, the sky was clear and the air smelled like the beginning of spring. My students were rowdy because Friday always hits like a sugar rush and I didn't bother to fight it. After the last bell, I stayed behind to organize my desk, humming to myself, filing away permission slips and lesson plans with the calm rhythm of someone who finally feels in control of her own life. The classroom was quiet. The hallway outside, even quieter. And then the door opened. I didn't see who it was at first, just the sound of it creaking open, slow and uncertain, followed by the soft shuffle of shoes against linoleum. I looked up, still holding a stack of papers, and saw someone standing in the doorway. I don't know who I expected, but my breath caught. The screen would fade to black here if this were a movie, leaving the audience to wonder who it was, someone from my past, someone new, or someone I never saw coming. All I know is I looked up. And I smiled.